Minister. Deputy O'Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. And just to say, Minister, I mean, under the heading of microfinance schemes or venture capital funds, there is a more efficient way of using that small bit of money to get greater returns, and it is through peer-to-peer financing or crowdfunding, which I know you know a lot about. And when we talk about new financing models for small and medium enterprises, I mean, this is a financing model that doesn't involve banks and doesn't involve the government, and is actually providing greater returns for both the lender and the borrower. And it's a very efficient way for getting funding for SMEs. But there is a role for government support somewhere, and we see when we look at the UK and the huge market there is there for peer-to-peer financing, how the UK government has done a little bit to help that market in itself, both through changes in the taxation laws, but also through putting in a bit of its own funding, where certain borrowing arrangements are met through the peer-to-peer financing. The government then does a bit of a top-up as well as an additional layer, and it of course gets that money back as a return. I just wonder, or to ask the Minister if he pursues similar measures here in Ireland to help the peer-to-peer financing model really get established here and take off. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy. And Deputy Cleary, briefly.
Just to support Deputy Murphy's call, I think many of the HBSU companies you speak about and many of the companies you targeted would be very comfortable with the model of financing he's suggesting. And while I welcome the scheme, Minister, and I welcome the venture capital scheme, again we're focusing on the export-orientated sector, which is fine, but our domestic sector, our homegrown businesses are still a little bit lost in terms of financing initiatives. There's no home for them to go to in terms of the emphasis and the continued emphasis we place on the welcome emphasis, and I support it, but we are doing so, we are still ignoring our homegrown industries who don't maybe have an export orientation, who maybe never will have an export orientation, and we've got to collectively get our minds around them and put supports in place for them.
Thank you, Deputy. Minister.
Yeah, no, first of all, I agree that crowdfunding is an interesting area, and there is one such initiative I know of here in Ireland, and I met the sponsors of it recently, and I think they're beginning to have a track record in it. I think what was interesting about it, I thought, was a lot of the funding came from within, if you like, the very local customer base. It wasn't, if you like, remote people. So it actually built a community of interest around business. So people not only were using the business, but actually were investing in the business as well. And I think, I think it does, and I will look at how government can better support that. It clearly, it can be part of this picture, which is going to be a mosaic. I think that Deputy Cleary rightly adverts to that. Really, we are seeing banks retreating from some, internationally, globally, retreating from some areas. We have a pretty high dependence on banks for sources of funding. We're going to have to build new sources and build a mosaic of sources of funding. We have a number in the field. I admit that they could be, they have potential to grow further. I think certainly thinking is not over on, access to finance, and I think that's one area that we can develop. And we are open to credible suggestions from deputies on how we help to build this out. As Deputy Perry has said, the new establishment of the local enterprise offices as a first-stop shop, I think, will give us a much better window on the type of needs of these companies. We've created a centre of excellence in Enterprise Ireland, so I think it's a two-way process that we hope will get better intelligence to mould effective policy instruments.
Thank you, Minister.